Well, hello, my paranormal peeps, and welcome back to another Deep Woods Paranormal podcast. My name is Matt Harvey. I am the host of the Deep Woods Paranormal podcast, and on this podcast, we're making the paranormal normal. All right, so today you can see I'm in an incognito mode. No Bigfoot hat, no paranormal shirt, and there's a reason for that. Shh, I'm talking about Big Brother, aka the government. All right. So, is the government hiding files about Bigfoot? For decades, whispers of classified reports, confiscated evidence, and cover-ups have surrounded the Bigfoot research. In this episode, I will talk about the shadowy world of the secret government secrets. From FBI file analysis to alleged military Bigfoot sightings and national park disappearances that may not be what they seem. All right. So what does the government really know about Sasquatch? Why were official investigations quietly shelved? And could the truth finally be hidden in plain sight? So we're going to take a look at this, guys. All right. So we're going to start with the real file in 1976 of Bigfoot hair, the investigation and what it revealed. We're going to there's declassified FOIA documents mentioning wild man and hairy hominids. There's a National Park Service cover-up, theories and missing persons parallels, the military and ranger reports that were buried or lost, alleged underground evidence, vaults of alleged underground evidence, vaults and whistleblower claims, possible reasons for suppression, public panic, environmental secrecy, or military interests. We're also going to connect UFO disclosures to other government declassifications as well. So, to wrap that up in a nutshell, we're going to take a look at all these things and take a look and see what really happened. If you know us in our research, we're all about real evidence. We like real, tangible evidence, and to get there's just a lot of rumors and this is and that's out there. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. Anyways, I've got the diffuser running with lavender so that the spirits stop messing with me while I'm trying to do this podcast. All right. So back in the 1970s, the FBI actually did test some hair samples and tissue that was submitted by a Bigfoot researcher. I'm not going to get into his names. But they concluded that the samples were actually from a member of the deer family. So, new release documents details the FBI correspondence with the researcher regarding the test. The information center sent about 15 hairs attached to a tiny piece of skin for the FBI to analyze back in 1976. The gentleman told the Bureau and he was filing the first sample of 6 and he felt might be important. He didn't tell them if it was a Bigfoot, evidently, because he didn't want them to know. The laboratory typically only conducts examinations in connections with crimes and investigations. However, in this case, they made an exception in the interest of researching and to specifically identify what the item was. So that examination basically came back. They used a microscope and they studied morphological characteristics like root structure and compared the sample with hairs to other known samples. And then in 1977, the FBI informed the gentleman the hairs were of a deer family origin. Now, this has been discredited. From what I understand, these hair samples came back from 1977, and now they're retesting those differently today. They're using DNA and stuff like that. They didn't have DNA samples back then. They just have a microscope. So imagine they're looking under the microscope and comparing it to like 2 slides, one by one. And on the one side you had the unknown sample, and on this side you had the deer sample, and they kind of looked at them and said, okay, these match. But who knows if that actually is real or not. Maybe they were just they figured out, nope, that isn't anything that we know about. So we will keep this specimen and make sure that it doesn't get back out into the public. So I guess they did 6 different samples, and all of them came back to be some kind of deer. Bear with me for a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so according to the FBI, there was no specific Bigfoot hair sample tested by the FBI in 1977. Basically, it was ever revised or by another researcher, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just reading through this real quick. So yeah, exactly. The FBI's microscope hair analysis methods have been widely re-examined and discredited in general forensics context. So they're just saying that this basically was not found to be right. A symptomatic error, a 2015 review by the FBI and the Department of Justice found that the FBI hair examiners had proven scientifically invalid testimony over 95% of the criminal cases that were examined. Ooh, that's not good. In many instances, examiners overstated certainty of hair matches to sway juries. Ooh, boy, they got in trouble. So, yeah, I mean, 95% chance that hair sample was not what they said it was. That makes you wonder. Your ears kind of perk up, right? You're looking at it, you're going, okay, what the heck? All right, so we're going to move on to the next thing. Wild men and hairy hominids. So there's been a lot of stories of wild men and stuff like that. Some of the TV shows recently have been, the paranormal TV shows have been talking about them and possibly seen them in, I believe it was either Tennessee or Kentucky, where there's supposedly people that live out in the wild that are pretty much in their birthday suits, and some are pretty hairy and stuff like that, and they may be, the theory behind them is that maybe they are some kind of human that never really kind of became more domesticated, or they're kind of in between humans and original man. So they could be some other kind of human, and they just, like I said, they never got modernized to the point where they live in a civilization. They still out there using medieval tools and stuff like that, and they're just essentially living in the wild. So stories of wild men and hairy hominids are a worldwide cultural phenomenon rooted in ancient folklore, medieval beliefs, and modern cryptozoology. Why can't I say these names? These figures represent contrast between civilization and wild nature, and they reflect our fears as fascinations with the untamed part of the world and on ourselves. So it says folklore and mythology. Accounts of wild, hairy, human-like creatures have appeared in legends for millennia across many cultures. The ancient epic of Ganache, the earliest known written version of the wild man, is Enkidu, a savage-raised animal who is tamed by a woman and brought into civilization. The Greeks and the Romans also saw figures like this. Medieval Europe, hairy saints. Medieval lore also featured hairy saints or hermits who renounced society and lived in the wilderness, along with their bodies to become wild and converted into a hairy sign of their devotion. Okay. So basically, I'm just reading this kind of stuff off of here. And then North America also has tales of human-like creatures that they also refer to as hairy men, or they're basically, they've been passed. These traditions have been basically handed down through generations. It's also linked to what is known as Sasquatch or Bigfoot. So I believe there's a difference between a wild man or hairy man and a Bigfoot. Now, if you guys study these things, I know we have a lot of different people out there that research all different kinds of things, which is cool. Comment down below. In fact, it'd be interesting to have you on the show to kind of explain what the difference between a wild person or wild man or woman is and a Bigfoot. Because I think there is a little bit different take, if you will. I think they're a little bit different creature, if you will. So it says cryptozoology. Let me get a sip of my water here. Okay. Cryptozoology. In modern times, sightings of hairy bipedal hominids are primarily studied under cryptozoology. Bigfoot and Sasquatch, the most well-known hairy hominids, is Bigfoot or Sasquatch of North America. The name Sasquatch is allegedly, it's a term derived from Sasquatch, wild man of the coastal Satchel People. We talked about this before. So Yeti, Himalayan mountains, Yowie in Australia. Other examples of hairy hominids exist worldwide, including Almas in Central Asia, Alaska, and the urine of China. So some cryptozoologists say that these creatures are these creatures are relict of hominids such as extinct ape Gigantopithecus. So they're relating to Gigantopithecus. Okay. All right, so we're not going to continue with this because there's just so many different names and stuff. It's just going over the same stuff over and over and over again and just in different terms. All right, so let's get into the national parks. What do the national parks know about missing persons? Is it Bigfoot's grabbing them? Is it the aliens? Is it Dogman? It says claims of cover-up by the National Park Service, or the NPS, regarding missing persons are all central to the 411 missing conspiracy theories, but suggest that unusual high number of unexplained disappearances in national parks point to a hidden truth. However, official sources and independent reporting indicate that the NPS, National Park Service, does not systematically track missing persons, and there is no evidence of a widespread conspiracy. Well, let's break that down for a second. Okay, so if you're the National Park Service, number one, you're saying you do not track them, right? You don't keep track of how many people go missing and all that stuff, but yet you're telling us that it's not real? There are people that keep track of them and keep track of what's going on, and they're saying it's happening, and you're saying, oh, well, we don't keep records, but it's not real. Does that make you scratch your head a little bit, guys? So, the missing 411 theory, originally the conspiracy theory that was popularized by an Arthur and retired police officer, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to have any issues with YouTube, who published a book and a series and documentary under the 411 missing brand. He had claims to identify clusters of bizarre and unexplained disappearances in national parks. He alleges these incidents have unusual let's see, they have unusual commonalities that are often dismissed or ignored by authorities. He suggests that the National Park Service is engaged in a cover-up by not acknowledging these patterns or creating a centralized database of missing park persons. Interesting. So he's saying that what I just said before, it's a little fishy, if you will, a little fishy, right? So he's saying that essentially what they're doing is they're covering up, they're not collecting the names and documenting these things because they don't want to know how many people are going missing in each park. He's also found a cluster of of locations where these things are happening. So again, is it the UFOs? Is it the Dogman? Is it Bigfoot? Who's taking these people? Is it just the military? Maybe there's somebody else out there that's doing this to them. But they don't want to scare you out of the national parks. So they essentially tell you, oh, yeah, we don't keep records of that. Isn't that a little fishy? Yeah. Okay, so the official NPS position, or the National Park position, search and rescue data. The NPS has stated that its search and rescue incidents are often minor, such as child temporarily separated from their parents. More complex multi-day searches are rare, and the vast majority of individuals are quickly found. So no central database. It acknowledges it does not keep a comprehensive public database of all missing persons cases across the park. This, in fact, cited by the author as evidence of a cover-up, is officially explained by decentralized nature of how information is collected and how and maintained by individual parks. So it says cold cases. The NPS investigates investigation. The NPS Investigative Search Branch (ISB) does not maintain a public list of unsolved cold cases, which includes some missing persons. This is used to solicit tips from the public. Another thing comes to mind. Everybody blames Bigfoot and Dogman and all that stuff. Makes me wonder if maybe there's somebody else out there who's taking people and doing terrible things to them, or just, I don't want to say the certain words, but is ending their lives, and maybe he or she are doing lots of it, and they don't want you to know that person's in the park. I just recently saw a show on national parks. I'm not going to say what network is on or what the show was, but it was pretty interesting. And it makes me wonder if, okay, maybe there actually is somebody out there doing this, and it's not the Bigfoots or whatever that is grabbing people. Maybe it's Big Brother, maybe it's the UFOs. Who knows? You guys got to make up your own mind on that. All right, so let's move on to, let's see, military reports. You guys know I've been doing Bigfoot research and UFO research for a while now, at least 10 years plus, and actually closer to 15, more than likely. And because I didn't start with that, I started with ghosts. But in my research, I've come across several people that have told me, military personnel that have told me they've had strange encounters in the forest. One guy told me he was special ops. He looked at me and just smiled. He like, Matt, if you really knew what was in the forest, you wouldn't go into the forest. And so that makes me wonder if, maybe this is part of why they don't document these things. It's the military grabbing people. Who knows? But there's maybe other things out there that we don't know about that aren't even like in cryptozoology or anything else. I know I've seen a couple of those things out there before, and I've talked about the cloaked figures. They're not Bigfoots. I know they're not Bigfoots. I don't know if there's some kind of soldier. Maybe it's some kind of new thing that they're testing out. Maybe they're trying to see if you can see them. I don't know. Like when I went to Fort Worth and looked for the Fort Worth monster, something literally pulled me down twice, just grabbed me. I couldn't see anything. Just literally ripped me down, and that's where I messed up my ankle. But it just makes me wonder, maybe there's something else out there. Is it some kind of alien technology? Is it some kind of cloaking technology? Maybe they're grabbing people and people are freaking out, and so maybe they're making them disappear so they don't tattle on them. I mean, this is the missing 411 reports have been going on for a long, long time. What a better place to go test military technology than in a forest, right? Because that's where your enemies usually are. Nowadays, not so much, but back in the day, they were. You'd fight, guerrilla warfare in the forest. So it makes me wonder if they're developing some kind of new technology to see what they can do. Anyways, let's get back into military reports. So I'm not going to name these names just because I don't want to have any issues. Again, I'm in incognito mode. And so this sergeant claimed to have seen multiple Bigfoots during military exercises in Oregon in 1983. according to the podcast that he went on. Fort Lewis incident. This is a different incident. Fort Lewis incident, 1979. The battalion was allegedly ordered out of the training area after someone reported seeing a Bigfoot and shot a flare at it. I guess that was on Facebook. Fort Rougarou encounter, an Army reservist unit administrator reports a daily encounter with a large, dark, shadowy figure on Fort Rucker Army Base. And that, I guess that's on a Bigfoot website. And then Fort Stewart, a team investigated a series of reported sightings in and around the Fort Stewart Army Base in Georgia, noting that the area's potential as a habitat, but not detecting any activity during their search. Here's ranger reports. Fontana Lake. A park ranger responded to a missing camper report near Fontana Lake and discovered a campsite in disarray. The ranger found what appeared to be large canine-like footprints and traced the blood and reported to be encountered with a creature with glowing eyes inside a cave. That sounds more like Dogman to me. So here's Yellowstone. Two brothers camping in Yellowstone reported hearing a large, heavy creature running it on 2 feet through the woods near their tent. They later found no footprints, which is a detail often mentioned in similar reports and shown on his YouTube video. Okay. Mulgolland monster. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. In 1968, an encounter where 3 campers were reportedly seeing a tall, shadowy, upright figure and a glowing red eyes near Wood Canyon Lake. They reported an incident to rangers before leaving the area. Okay. And last but not least, the Western Air Defense Sector, part of the Washington Air National Guard, has adopted a Bigfoot as a mascot, referencing its rarely seen but ever-pleasant monitoring role, says the Washington State Military Department. So it makes you wonder if maybe they're having sightings. I mean, Washington, Oregon, those are places you're going to see them all the time. All right, so let's talk about government whistleblowers. It says numerous unsubstantiated claims from alleged Bigfoot whistleblowers have circulated online, mostly in cryptozoology forums and social media. So I don't have to read this to you guys. Essentially, this goes through and tries to discredit the whistleblowers, saying that they essentially don't know what they're talking about. This is not real. The government doesn't really list anything about Bigfoot on their sites or anything like that. They've really gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that Bigfoots are not on any government website, and they kind of keep them away from the government for some reason. You think with as many sightings and as many encounters as there have been, there would be some kind of special team that investigates these sightings and stuff like that within the military. Makes you wonder what they know, if they're not really getting into the subject. I know they recently have gotten into quite a bit of UFO stuff, and they're starting to admit, hey, UFOs are real and stuff like that. But now they're kind of saying, they're not talking about Bigfoot at all. If you've noticed, it's really strange that they're not talking about the Bigfoot phenomenon. Maybe that's next. Maybe after they come out and look, okay, well, UFOs are real and aliens are real. Okay, now we're going to let you know the Bigfoot's real too. It makes you wonder what else they're hiding, right? They're just kind of keeping it quiet. They're just like, mum's a word, right? They're just kind of keeping their lips shut. All right. So I've always wondered, and I've heard from people, I've met a lot of people in my time as I've gotten into the Bigfoot research that are military and have participated in special organizations and stuff that don't exist, if you will. Like the A-Team, right? They don't really exist, but they did exist. They're like a special black ops team that essentially will hunt down Bigfoots. Now, if you remember my friend Joe, I'm starting to wonder if something happened to him. I'm starting to wonder, Joe had enemies, unfortunately. He was not the best guy, but he was a cool guy, and he had really turned his life around and was really trying to do something special with Bigfoot in his life and stuff like that. And he lived on a 55-acre piece of land up in the Sabine National Forest, and we were lucky enough for about just over 4 years to go up there every couple of 3 or 4 months usually, and document new paranormal activity on his property. Right, Bigfoot. You had some weird UFO stuff on his property. Sometimes you had ghosts. His relatives basically would come and mess with our cameras and stuff, and we've documented all that. If you go back and watch any of the Joe's Camp stuff, you'll see on our YouTube channel there's quite a bit of it on there about him. But we did a full documentary on it, and unfortunately, if I had the equipment I had today, that documentary would have been a hell of a lot better. We were hoping to get another opportunity to go back up there, and unfortunately, with his death, things kind of just stopped. But yeah, I mean, his place was just amazing. I mean, literally, he was in Bigfoot's living room, and literally coming through his property. I mean, 7 or 8 people. I took 7 or 8 different people up there with me. Every single one of them had a Bigfoot sighting, went from non-believer to believer. So one day he was talking about hearing gunshots and all this other stuff, and he was severely worried about the Bigfoots in his area. From what I understand, when a Bigfoot becomes a nuisance or becomes a known or starts doing things to cause problems, that Bigfoot basically gets the axe, if you will. They basically will make them disappear, if you will. Kind of like the 411 missing files, right? So they will disappear and without a trace, and then stuff like that. But Joe heard a bunch of gunshots up by his property and saw a black helicopter that made no noise, fly over his property, and he thought people were coming down into his land, and he went in to grab his protective piece and ran back out there. And by the time he got back out there, the gunshots had stopped, and basically the helicopter's gone and everything. So, and then it went quiet up in his location for quite a while. There was no Bigfoot activity for 6-8 months. So we don't know if they did something or what, but I have heard of a special Bigfoot or cryptozoology team that basically tracks these things, and when they become an issue, we'll take them out. If you remember the Survivor Man episode where he did Bigfoot research, he heard, he was talking to that one gentleman that also researched Bigfoot, and he recorded all the gunshots that night. And so Les Stroud basically followed up on that. You guys can go watch that episode. I don't want to get too much into that show because I don't want to get an issue with YouTube. But yeah, I mean, I do really think that they have some kind of eyes on what's going on. I'm pretty sure they're involved with what's going on with Bigfoot and the national parks and stuff like that. Like I said, that one guy was telling me if you really knew what was in the forest, you probably wouldn't go into the forest. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate you guys watching and listening, and we will catch you guys on the next one.